Olá, boa tarde. Me chamo Joanna, eu sou polaca e não falo português pouco. Eu gosto de continuar em inglês. Toda a gente entende inglês? Perfeito. So, I will start a little bit from myself. I was born in Poland, and I'm 41 now. In Poland, I grew up with fermentation a lot. So the microbiology of the guts is something what we connect naturally. And in my 20s, I left Poland to discover the world and to study. I studied body psychotherapy. Exactly element of it was biodynamic massage therapy, which is connected and related with the relationship which we make with our guts. Through that therapy, we help people understand that the microbiome in your guts can be changeable, that the microbiome in your guts is the first brain, which gives the signals up to that brain, and then all other happens. And through that studies, I actually understood how important it is to take care of your microbiome. When I finished the studies, we moved after a few years to Portugal. When I basically I continue to understand that the microbiome then is not only in our guts, but is in other places, is everywhere, is in the soil, is in the plants, is on our skin, is in our mouth, and more and more areas. Today we're going to talk about Bokashi composting and how with this method of composting we can actually positively impact the microbiome of the soil. I opened a company here in Portugal. It's called Green Tribe People. The whole idea of that company is to grow into a body which will create connections with people like-minded. So people which wants to take care of the nature, wants to take care of themselves, their children, their families. And we are in the starting moment of it. We are based in South Outonio, near Odemira in Alentejo. And this is where we work and run regular workshops for people to make them understand how we can use effective microorganisms to improve the microbes all around us. First, we're going to focus on actually this microbiome. What is it? Microbiome, the community of microorganisms, which are bacteria, fungi, viruses, that live in and on living organisms, as well as in soil, water, and air. The most studies is the human guts microbiome, but there is also microbiomes on the skin, in the mouth, lungs, plants, and more animals. What is noticed through the last 40 or actually after the 2000 year is that the microbiome has changed a lot. And this, the causes of it are factors of the problems which comes along. Here we can see and focus on the changes seen in many soils over the last 40 years. And through the intensive agriculture and fertilization, more bacteria thrive on readily available nitrogen, which is very easy to absorb, but not enough for the plants and soil to actually become better. They decline of slow-growing organisms, which mainly is the mycorrhizae. You for sure heard of it. It's a sort of a mushroom formation already, which interconnects the roots of the plants, and that is highly reduced. The next driver is the pesticides and heavy metals, and that can suppress sensitive microbes and favor the resistance of pollutant degrading microbes. Loss of organic matter through tillage and erosion, and that is much less food for microbes, which lowers biomass and diversity. It also leaves us more open to fires. Okay, we need to understand that the top level of the soil is the most important level of the soil for us humans and for animals and for the planet to grow on. Also, the antibiotics came from that level of the soil. We know a lot about that, but we still know little. The land use change and urbanization, replacement of complex plant communities with crops reduce microbial groups in them, and the climate change, warming and altered rainfall, shifts in community composition, some soils dry out more, favoring spore-forming or drought-tolerant species, like the funguses, which are dangerous for our health as well, especially respiratory systems. Why it matters, what the microbiome matters. The soil microbiomes cycle nutrients, break down organic matter, build soil structure, and form symbiosis with plants. It also changes that reduce diversity or disturb fungal bacterial balance can make soils less resistant, more prone to erosion, or dependent on synthetic inputs. Health, diverse soil microbes help lock down carbon in the ground, support crop nutrition, and protect plant from pests. And in the summary page, I wanted to say that the last 20-40 years, both of understanding of the microbiome and its composition in industrialized societies have changed dramatically. Practices that add organic matter, microbial compositions, which in that case we use EM called effective microorganisms, minimalize chemical disturbance and keep soils covered, mulching it, cover crops and compost, tend to rebuild a richer, more stable microbiome. It's a process which doesn't happen in 1 month. It's a process which, to observe the change, you need like a year cycle, also in our guts, same as in nature. Supporting soil microbiome with Bokashi. And now we're going to get to the point, what is actually Bokashi, how to make it and keep it working well, and how to use it in the garden. And on the end, we're going to talk about benefits of Bokashi composting. First, let's start about how we get to the Bokashi. Bokashi is a Japanese way of composting, and it happens thanks to collection of your food waste and inoculating this food waste with microbiotical compounds called, in that case, Bokashi. Bokashi means fermented matter. We can ferment anything with that method. The discovery comes from Professor Dr. Teuro Higa, which lives in Okinawa. And in the last 60 years, he started on observing how he can reverse the process of intensive agriculture with chemicals back to a natural way and have at least the same, but in majority of cases, much better results. So, okay, let's then start about what is this Bokashi. Bokashi bran, which is a starter for the compost, comes in the form of fermented wheat bran, inoculated with bacteria and sugar for the bacteria to grow. That is the bacteria. The starter is called EM1, and that is the sugar to grow for the bacteria. We combine it also with some other elements, but I will not focus too much on it. For the process of full fermentation, we need 2 buckets. The full fermentation happens in 4 weeks instead of 6 months. In 4 weeks, you have a compost ready to put into your soil. It's almost odorless method. It has sweet and sour flavor actually instead of odor, which would ammonia, which would push you away from making it, especially in the house, you know. We are a family of 4, we have 2 kids, and we see that actually having this compost in our house is the best idea we could actually come across. Because we don't have to collect all the bits and pieces and bring it to the fields or walk the distances, put it on the pail, expect lots of flies or smells or animals taking it all over the garden. And we use this method for 10 years now. This bucket is the old version of the bucket, is a 10 years old bucket which we use. And those ones are newer versions of it. The elements of the buckets are they are made with recycled plastic, and they are very elastic and long-lasting. And the way of making is pretty simple and very easy. When we, through the day, collect the food waste, we collect it into something smaller like this. It doesn't need to be that bucket. You can use whatever you like at home. And you collect through the day all the food waste you produce. Also cooked food, also small bones, also eggshells, also small pieces of a cheese or anything related to the dairy, but not the liquids. So we don't put any liquid yogurts, we don't put any soups in it. This can actually destroy the compost itself. So through the day we collect that into the bucket, and towards the end of the day we put it into that clever fermenter in front of me. In the fermenter, on the end of the presentation you will be able to come closer and touch and see all this. You have a sieve like this at the bottom, and there is small space at the bottom of that bucket for the juice collection. So once you put your food leftovers in it, you take the bran. It's important to keep the bran closed so it doesn't oxidate. Oxidation is in general slowing down the bacteria, and it's also killing them on the end. So less oxygen we get in this is better. And you have a measurement thing here. You can take for the full bucket like this, I would take maybe 2 of those, and you just sprinkle it on the top. What is important, as this is no air fermentation, is that you compact the food leftovers, so there is no air in between and they actually touch the bran very well. Once this is done, you make sure that you cover it very well. And that's all you need to do. The next day you repeat the procedure until the bucket is full. To fill up this bucket, it takes about 2 weeks for us. For 2 people, it will take 3 weeks, I guess. But in 2 weeks is enough space, and believe me, we are maybe not 100% vegan, but we eat mostly fruits and vegetables. And we have lots of peels which we put into it, but it's enough, it's big enough. Through the process of fermentation, you're going to get the juice of which I mentioned. The juice is going to come out in here. You're going to open the tap and collect it into this container. And then you can use this juice for a few things. You can use it as a fertilizer for your plants. For young plants, you dilute it 1 to 500 even. For bigger plants, you dilute it 1 to 100. And you can use it in a normal watering routine. When I am too lazy to do it, or I have no time at that day, it's important to use the juice in the same day as you collect it, because otherwise it will oxidize and just go off. We put it into the exits of the water in the house. So sink, bathroom, toilet, sink in a bathroom, anything where the exit of the water comes. Thanks to the high bacterial value of that juice, it cleans the pipes in your house, keeping them clean and eliminating the odors from it. On the passageway, your grey water system, if you have a grey water system at home, will also benefit from it, and you will notice that the sediments starts to reduce much more because bacteria will eat it. Apart from that, when we have a place where I don't want the plants to grow, instead of using Roundup or any other chemical to kill the plants, for example, between the tiny stones, you put directly the juice onto it. You repeat it 2 to 3 times and it will not grow back. Okay? Acidity of that is super, super big, is below 4. Acidity of the bran is about 3.5. When you make the bacteria multiplication, is between 3.5 to 3.2. So thanks to that acidity, we can actually use it for that other purposes. Okay. So now you have the bucket full, and it took you about 2 weeks to do it. You take the bucket out of the base and you put it somewhere. Very important is to keep the lid closed, and also very important is to do not stick it on the direct sun. Once you start using this method over the year, you will notice that actually the environment affects the fermentation a lot. In the summer, it's much faster. It compacts much better. You get the juice from it much faster in bigger quantities, which is important to take out every 3 days. In the summer, even every 2 days. And you keep it somewhere just closed. You don't need to open it, do nothing with it. You take the other bucket, you fit it into the base, and you continue with the process. So again, you collect the food waste, put it in, press it, put the bran on top, make sure the lid is closed, collect the juice, and another 2 weeks are gone, right? The bucket is full. Through that 2 weeks, you also take the juice out of the bucket, which is already fermenting. It will keep on giving the juice all the time. In the winter, much slower. In the summer, much faster. Then we have the bucket ready to use it. How to use the food from that bucket? We have few ways of it. So when you put it in the soil, you should make, I actually have a nice picture here. That's how the bucket looks through the fermentation process. So the first layer, this is the bucket full, and this is the bucket after 2 weeks of fermenting. You will be able to see it live with our bucket. It's been fermenting for about 2 weeks. And you can notice the white sediment on it. It's a very good fungo for our plants, for our soil. It doesn't create always. As I said, it depends on the weather conditions the most. But then to use this, so we have a pitch in which we were growing some vegetables, and we have the bucket ready to go. First, we clean the top from the top plants from it. We use it for sauce and for soup. And then we made 2 holes. This is about a square meter surface. And the depth of this rows is about 30 centimeters. Okay? You put the compost in it, you mix it a little bit with the soil, and you cover it up with the soil from that. So this is filled in, and then you just cover with soil, and then because the exposure of the sun is very big in that place, we cover it with some straw on the top. Okay? To be able to plant in this place, you should wait another 2 weeks. In these 2 weeks, acidity of the compost goes down, and it actually matches the soil. And in these 2 weeks, you make sure that you actually created already a balanced connection between the soil and the compost itself. How to plant in it? So depends. When you have juicy cubes or plants like that, you just make a traditional normal hole in it, stick the plants, cover it up, and you will notice that if you want to make investigation, after another 2 weeks of planting, you can open the topsoil a little bit and you will see how rapid the roots reach down to this compost. It's almost incredible to see it. Later I will show you some picture on that as well. But going back to the buckets, once you empty the bucket into the soil, you clean the bucket and you move it back to the fermentation, to the first room. You can use, you can hand wash it, you can stick it into the, how you call it, the machine for washing the dishes, right? Dishwasher machine. But then the question is, what if we already have plants in the soil, right? So let's say it's not the first, but the second bucket, which is full, and we still want to use it in the soil, but we already planted some stuff. So in that case, you make a hole, again about 15 centimeters, a little bit more shallow, it doesn't need to be so deep. And you make a hole between the plants. So imagine this is one plant, this is another plant. And the very important bit is to keep 15 centimeters or up to 20 centimeters from the plant where you put in the compost in, for the acidity reasons. And you put a handful of it. Don't put the whole bucket into one hole, okay? One bucket to measure is for 1 square meter fertilization, okay? So you take a handful of it, you put into this hole, mix it, and 50 centimeters next to it, you make another hole and continue. If you don't want to use it on your growing beds, you can also dig it in just next to your walking path. And then the plants which are primordial to that place will suck from it and give the energy to the next plants. This is why we do compassion planting, right? Some plants support each other much better, some plants not so much. But in compassion planting, this is a very good way of taking care of the plants. If you don't want to bury it in the soil, oh, one more thing. The trees benefits from it also a lot. How to use the compost for the trees? If I'm the trunk of the tree and I finish my leaves here, this is where you want to make the holes, okay? So this, what is on the top, is on the bottom. And from here you make a hole, again 50-20 centimeters deep, 1 meter, again 1 meter again, and you go around the trees. If the tree is young, you make just 1 or 2 holes on each side of the tree. If you don't want to bury the compost into the soil, you can put it onto your compost pile, and that will be inoculator for the compost pile. So if you collect leaves or grass or any leftovers from the garden, you put it into the compost pile, and by adding the matter of that, you stimulate the compost, and you actually make it richer by this microbiome bacteria, which starts the life of everything. Okay. If you have a red worm farm, that's the third way of using the compost. You can feed your red worms with it. We've seen magic. I will show you a picture later. Every year in Alentejo, we try to inspire a neighbor or friend to use microbiology in their gardens. We had a situation last year in the garden. It was an eucalyptus forest, which was bought by our friends. They made terraces. Some of the eucalyptus still grows. It's on the slopey hill. super windy, conditions very harsh for the plants. And since the last 2 or 3 years, they start to build up the soil over there. They start planting, the plants go a little bit, then the pathogens come and just kill it. They harvest almost nothing. They had red worm bath, which they wanted to use as a stimulant for the soil buildup. But as the conditions are harsh, there was lots of rain in the winter time, the worms were not happy at all. They were almost dying, they were not active, they were not making babies, and there was no humus production. So we fed them with this compost. We fed them and we closed the top, and after 4 weeks we opened it up again. We could not believe what we saw. We put the hand like this, and the hand was full of worms, fat already, tangled all together, making babies constantly and creating lots of eggs and producing lots of humus. In 3 months' time, the bath was almost full. We had to add another bath, and we continue. We feed this farm, worm farm, every 4 weeks, because we also wanted to use the bucket in the garden from here and there. The combination of those 2 methods is super effective, is super healthy for the soil, and then you produce a lot of red worms which you then can take as a hand and you put it into the growing beds. And look at this. As they love Bokashi so much, they will stay in the areas where you use Bokashi. So they will shit in the places where you want them to shit. Simple, right? By this, we manipulate the soil in a way we want. The garden should not be something what is difficult. We should grow vegetables very easy. But because we change our lifestyles so much, the soil also has been changed so much, the climate is changed so much, it becomes a big job to do. Our duty here is to introduce people to very easy methods of using microbiology in Bokashi composting or using effective microorganisms to make your life easier with your garden and to make the garden actually work for you, not you for the garden. Okay? I will show you now the slides. Here we have the first one, which is experimental thing. As if you want to, this short presentation, so I cannot tell you all, okay? If you want to know more, we do regular workshops in Talentejo. The next one we do will be in Fertile Fest as well, 4th or 5th October. You are more than welcome to join us and ask questions. We are also here with our products at the bottom, so you can come and ask questions after the presentation. There is other ways of using Bokashi, so the fermented matters. We will talk a little bit more now about the bran itself. I will pass it around. You can smell it, touch it, be gentle with smelling because it's very intense. It's sweet and sour fermentation, okay? And I will talk about it. This bran, Bokashi is made with wheat bran and the inoculator, which is the EM1 and the melassa. And it can be used directly in the soil. By using it directly in the soil, you awakening the soil with the microbiology. And here what we created for the first plants, we actually mix the soil with the Bokashi. We kept it in a closed bag for 2 weeks, so it ferments more and it's actually reduced the acidity. Even 3 weeks is better to make sure that the acidity will not destroy the seeds. And what we notice when we have the pea growing in it is that the raiser of it, the roots of it, are very different than the other roots. They had lots of tiny hairs on them. That is the starting point for the big plants, right? Once this is on the roots, it can easily connect when you transplant it. And that's what was our first very good positive impression about mixing the starter, the Bokashi bran, into the soil. We also, not in that garden which I talked before, but in another garden, which were run for many years, we started with that as well, just inoculating it around the trees, fruit trees, and in the growing peaches. And the results were also amazing. The plants were much more resistant to the pathogens. That's what was observed by the owner of the garden. Here is the roots of the lettuce which I picked. This lettuce is grown in that much soil. We have a tiny space outside of our house for microgreens growing. So we have lettuce, rucola, pea, and we just cut it with the scissors and we eat it from there. So I don't need to run to the garden and come back if I want some salad, right? When I pull the roots, by pulling one root, I pulled all the tray. It was so much connected with each other. The networking under the perspective which we see was incredible. Here is the green beans. It's on the hands of one of my child. I never could cook them because they eat them raw. They found it, they pick all of them and just break it, smash on their face the juice from it and just eat it. The flavor of your food grown on the Bokashi bucket has the highest value of the vitamins and minerals, has the best flavor you can get from that seed and in that combination of your soil. And they also store much better. That is what we noticed a huge problem in conventional growing. Especially now we travel to Spain and we sort of, compare the food, let's call it. Yeah, the variety is huge, but you buy lemons and in 2 days they're off. They don't stay. They're not having any life in them. So by using microbiology, the fruits are also storing much better. This is garlic, is the proud of that garden. They said that they never managed to grow garlic, and that one was that big in the diameter. And they say is the proud of it. We put Bokashi, that was the bed which you actually saw on the first picture. We put Bokashi, and then through the process of the growing, we were using microbes to spray the foliage of the plants. When you spray bacteria on the foliage, you create biofilm. This biofilm protects the plants from heavy metals, from some of the acidity in the air which comes out with the rains. It also makes it more solid and rigid to the environmental conditions. Here is how the garden looks. So you can see the slopes, terrace, and then this is autumn grown. And then there's a forest in the back. And here is the redworm farm. So that's the buff. And that's how it looked when we opened it. Okay? It was incredible. I made like a big wow. I think that every neighbor could hear. It was my first attempt to connect Bokashi composting with the redworm farm. And I think this is a brilliant idea. That's the end of the presentation. That's our contact details. We have a website on which you can purchase the products. We can also you can invite us for workshops and for personal advice on your lands and households on how to use microbiology in combination of the natural ways of growing. And now on the end, I think is a good moment to show you, so you can pass by and see. I will show you the juice of the Bokashi compost and the Bokashi compost itself. Okay. So whenever you're ready, you can come over and have a look.